Hello. In this video, I will show you how to make chicken doner in the most delicious way possible, along with all of the important tips and tricks. In this recipe, I don't use only chicken breast or only chicken thighs. I use the entire chicken. We will use the thighs, breast, wings, and drumette meat. Even the bones won't go to waste. We will use them to prepare a rich, flavorful sauce that will take the taste of the doner to a completely different level. If you really want to make delicious chicken doner, make sure to watch this recipe until the end. I am preparing this doner using 5 whole chickens. It may seem like a lot, but it actually isn't that much. It makes approximately 30 small sandwich-sized doner portions. I am preparing these for children, and let me say this from the beginning. This is not a paid event. We are doing it entirely to make them happy. Most of you probably already know how I remove the bones from a whole chicken, but I still want to show it briefly. First, I separate the wings and drumettes. Then I cut through the center of the breast with a knife and open both sides downward. From this point on, I tried to put the knife aside as much as possible and work with my hands. This makes it much easier to remove the center rib cage in one piece without damaging the meat. Be sure to scrape off the small pieces of meat left on the ribs. Especially the meat around the wishbone is very flavorful, so don't waste it. Finally, I carefully remove the thigh bones as well. All 5 chickens are now completely deboned and ready. Now I'm placing the chicken bones into a pressure cooker. After adding enough salt, I also add a few bay leaves. As a measurement, I use 1 liter of water for each chicken. Since I'm preparing 5 chickens, I add a total of 5 liters of water. Now I turn the heat all the way up. At this stage, our goal is to bring the water to a rapid boil and skim off the dirty foam that rises to the surface. Make sure to remove all of that foam. Doing this will make the chicken stock much clearer and the flavor will be much cleaner and more pleasant. That's why it's important to keep the heat high during the initial boiling stage. After removing all of the foam, I close the lid. From this point on, it will cook over medium heat for about 2 hours. By the end of that time, all the flavor, even the marrow inside the bones, will have been extracted into the broth. The bones will even become soft enough to fall apart easily. We'll use this rich chicken stock in the sauce we'll prepare shortly. Now let's move on to the marinating stage. For the marinade, I add 3 tablespoons of yogurt, then I add 1 tablespoon of hot pepper paste and half a tablespoon of tomato paste. Next, I add about 3 tablespoons of soy sauce. Finally, I use around 30 grams of salt. The amount of salt is really important. As a general rule, about 6 grams of salt per kilogram of chicken gives a well-balanced result. Of course, you can make small adjustments according to your own taste, but this ratio is one of the measurements I've used for years and consistently achieved the best results with. Now I'm adding the spices. I use garlic powder, black pepper, paprika, ground cumin, and dried thyme. If you'd like, you can also add a small amount of ready-made chicken seasoning. Since they contain a variety of spices, they add a nice aroma to the marinade. Now I mix everything together thoroughly. I pour the marinade over the chicken and mix everything well, making sure every single piece is completely coated. Distributing the marinade evenly is very important because it ensures that every bite of the finished doner has the same great flavor. Now we can start assembling the doner. I secured the doner skewer on top of a crate so it would stand firmly. Since the tip of the skewer wasn't very sharp, I carved a small piece of wood into a point and attached it to the tip. This made it much easier to stack the chicken onto the skewer without tearing the meat. I stack the chicken by alternating 1 thigh and 1 breast piece. This way the fatty and lean meat are evenly distributed. As the doner cooks, this helps it cook more evenly while staying much juicier. I trim any edges sticking out with a knife. I never throw away those trimmed pieces. Instead, I place them into the empty spaces to make the doner more balanced. I don't spend hours trying to make a perfectly shaped doner. For me, flavor is much more important than appearance. Once it's cooked, we'll shave the outer surface anyway, so small imperfections won't matter at all. The doner is now completely ready. As you can see, I wrap it tightly with plastic wrap so no air can get inside and place it in the refrigerator. It will rest for at least one night. During this time, the marinade will fully penetrate the meat, allowing all the flavors to blend together. The next morning, we'll cook it slowly over a wood fire to bring out its true flavor. Alright friends, I used to have a small gas-powered Döner grill. For this recipe, I completely converted it to work with a wood fire. I removed the gas system and added shelves inside so I could burn wood. I installed a grill grate at the front and made side panels to keep the heat inside. I also added a removable back panel. When I want to reduce the fire, I put the panel in place. When I want a stronger flame, I remove it. And by using the wind direction correctly, controlling the fire becomes much easier. Of course, cooking Döner over a wood fire requires a little more effort. There will be some smoke and you'll need to keep an eye on the fire constantly. But in the end, the smoky aroma and the natural wood-fired flavor make all that effort completely worthwhile. When I first lit the fire, the wood hadn't fully ignited yet, so it produced some soot. Once it turned into glowing embers, that problem disappeared completely. Since I was using pine wood, there was a bit more smoke at the beginning. If possible, oak, beech, or fruit wood burns more evenly, but pine was what I had available. As you can see now, it's cooking beautifully. As the Döner cooks, I slice it into thin pieces and collect them in a covered container. In a moment, we'll combine them with the rich chicken stock sauce we prepared earlier. This is where the biggest secret to the flavor is revealed. By the way, I also had my Döner knife professionally sharpened beforehand. If you're thinking about building a setup like this at home, I highly recommend getting a proper Döner knife. Döner knives are much thinner and more flexible than regular kitchen knives. This allows you to slice the meat into very thin pieces without crushing it or damaging its fibers. It's really difficult to achieve the same result with a regular knife. Now let's check on the chicken stock that's been simmering for 2 hours. First, I give it a good stir with a ladle. The bones have now done their job. After removing them, I strain the rich chicken stock into a large pan. I add a little butter. Then I sprinkle in some dried thyme and paprika. Once the sauce starts to boil, I add all of the sliced Döner meat and let everything cook together for a few minutes. Some of you may be seeing this method for the first time. Some might even say, is this Döner or boiled chicken? But this technique truly takes the flavor to another level. The chicken stock rehydrates the meat, allows it to absorb the spices once again, and especially prevents the breast meat from drying out. The result is juicy, tender, and much more flavorful Döner in every single bite. Moreover, I didn't use only chicken breast. Since I also used chicken thighs, the Döner is naturally much juicier. Many commercial Döner shops, however, mostly use chicken breast to reduce costs. To prevent it from drying out, they often add tail fat or other animal fats. While it may look good during cooking, that fat can leave a greasy, waxy feeling in your mouth once it cools. With this method, all the flavor comes naturally from the chicken itself and the homemade sauce we prepared. I serve this Döner inside freshly baked bread. However, I don't dip the bread into the sauce because the flavor on the meat is more than enough. I only add tomatoes. I don't use onions, lettuce, French fries, pickles, ketchup, or mayonnaise. This is simply the style of Döner I enjoy the most, because I don't want all those extra ingredients to overshadow the flavor of the meat we worked so hard to prepare. I truly believe that many people who taste this will say, "What have we been eating all these years?" Before serving, I warm the bread lightly in a sandwich press. I don't want it to become crispy. My only goal is for the bread to stay soft while being warm. That way, when we wrap the Döner, it's easier to eat and the flavor is even more enjoyable. Alright friends, we've come to the end of today's video. All of the Döner we prepared will be given to the children. I hope they all enjoy it. As for me, unfortunately there isn't any left. I made all this Döner, but I only got to taste a single bite. Maybe in the next video, I'll remember to save one for myself.